a little bit about me. I grew up a gymnast, very competitive, and, got injured, went into college, and was just like a party girl, right? As most college students are. But it's weird. Like, you go from being an athlete your whole life, and it was just like one of those things where I think part of it was intimidation. Like, I didn't want to learn the gym. And the other part of it was just like it wasn't ever a priority at that point. So post grad, I was dating a guy and he was like, I think it would really help your stress and all of the things. So eventually I just ended up starting to go, but I had no idea what I was doing and just spent a lot of time running on the treadmill and doing all the typical like beginner things wrong. And then eventually picked up a program from some influencer and I lost a good bit of weight and people started asking me like, oh, are you competing soon? Are you in a prep? And I had no idea what that meant, right? So eventually like ended up hiring a coach and diving right into a prep, not really knowing what I was getting myself into, but fell in love with like the sport. And so a couple of years later, here we are. That's kind of like the short answer in how I ended up in the fitness industry and went full force from like a barely gym goer into a bodybuilder, which is kind of funny, but that's kind of that on like the fitness industry side. First year competing, I ran into like a podcast. At the time, the podcast was called The Flow State, and it was run by Aaron Diamond, Jordan Duggar. And the episode that caught my eye was called like The Dark Side of Contest Prep. And so I started listening to that as like my cardio podcast. And then a couple of years later, they posted a job opening. I applied in a really crazy like chapter of my life where like I really didn't even finish the entire application, which is now like one of the running jokes in the company because my colleague made like an 11-minute video on like why they should hire her and I didn't even like finish the app and we both tease each other every day about it. But when I got that call for the interview, it was kind of like one of those things that took me by surprise because I don't want to say I didn't give it my all. It was just something that got backburnered and never completed. But I've been here a little bit over a year. And so our mission is to be the gold standard for online fitness, coaches to build their businesses. And so something we really pride ourselves on is building really exceptional businesses for really great coaches, and just kind of launching them from where they are to a really comfortable scaled place where they can help and bring good to the industry for others, which has been really, really cool and rewarding to do in my year plus. And some of the stories are really, really cool.
Right. And I think business in general is such a tricky subject for a lot of people because they have a certain skill and a certain talent. And, maybe they want to have a business or maybe they don't want to like work for somebody else. And so like having a business is kind of like that, well, obvious route. But there's so much that goes into just like having a business, running a business, kind of optimizing the systems and the policies and procedures within that business. And so
Yeah.
many people don't know like how to do that. I think it's so valuable what you're doing and what you guys are doing as far as like helping people set up that side so they can do what they do well, and they can
Um,
continue to do it.
yeah. I feel like one of the things I hear the most is like, I like getting into the challenges and they're coaches, right? By trade, but they haven't learned the skill set of being a business owner. And obviously that is so crucial, especially when you're going to jump full force into making that your money, your revenue, your company's like safety net, right? Or your family safety net, I should say. So really just getting those coaches prepared with having an offer, knowing how to sell it, knowing how to market it, having procedures in place so that it operates like a business and not just like hey, DM me if you want a plan, because there's such a difference between that mentality behind it and having a business that you can really rely on to support yourself.
Right.
So it's really cool to see like even what we're able to do in our program in 90 days, right? And like get these people from maybe never having an offer or selling themselves to really being confident in their ability to have client acquisition, convert those clients, and then tap into the part that they're so good at, which is the coaching.
Yeah, I think being a business owner, I think that's one of the most important lessons you can learn is like do what you do well and then let other people help you on what they do well.
I think one of the things that I've taught to learn about people is like, what are we going to value? Are we going to value the money or are we going to value the time? Because if you value your time, the investment in yourself and in your business makes so much more sense. And the more money you invest, the more money you're going to make. And I'm fortunate to be around a company where we believe in investing in ourselves, but not everyone's privy to that like angle of thinking, right? And so it is oftentimes a limiting belief that people are just they're not there yet. And it can come down to so many things. But a lot of times, what we find it comes down to is their belief in themselves and their ability to trust themselves to do the work, to show up, to make it back. And, you know, we do really well here. So a lot of that just comes down to like, are you going to put down your head and do the work? And so it's definitely one of my favorite barriers to overcome with people because when you can see the potential in them, and you're like, man, if you would just do this thing, I know what's on the other side of it. It's really cool to see that come to light. And even sometimes dates, right? They see that plan and all of the puzzle pieces that they've been lacking. And they're just like, yeah, this is exactly what I needed. And that's like a really rewarding thing.
Right. And then I feel like it reinvigorates you whenever you start to see that happen. It's like, oh wow, like this is something that can work for me. These are the possibilities. And you start seeing opportunities and then you see more and more opportunities and you think like
Yeah.
things become possible in your mind, like after you see one thing become possible.
Yeah, it's cool too, because I joke it's like the community, right? Like we put all the puzzle pieces together, we give you the roadmap, but sometimes it's just a matter of getting in there and being next to the guy charging W or the guy like relentlessly posting, and you're like, man, these guys do this thing and I'm standing in my own way. And so oftentimes it's just being in the same room as the right people, and the confidence changes, the belief system changes, and you just see how quickly their progress changes in that trajectory for their business because they got in the right room. And sometimes for, so many instances, right? Not just fitness, that's really all it's about. But you have to be willing to take that leap and do that for yourself.
Yeah, and I know with the coaches that I've talked to here on the podcast, as well as the coaches that are associated with the weight room in general, it's so crazy to look at like the different stages that they're in and then see like, oh wow, this coaching really company that has several different coaches as a part of it is doing like they're going to conferences, they're going to training, they're going to continuing education, things like that, and they're constantly trying to figure out how to become better, and it's like how do we like make that the standard? How do we make that like the professionalism? How do we like increase the professionalism of the industry of fitness and for coaches and trainers like that? And I think it's just like shining a light, like you said, getting into the same room, understanding what these bigger dogs are doing really, and
Yeah,
just like emulating, not necessarily always doing it the same way they do it, but doing something similar to what they're doing because
yeah,
if it's working for somebody, there's got to be some sort of like reason behind why they're doing what they're doing.
totally. Yeah, our company puts on a really killer event in December. It's coming up here soon. And it's really cool to get in the room with like the Beatrice Coolians of the industry. And man, we had so many great speakers last year, Brooke Powell, and just hearing like everyone's journey at the root is not that different from one another. They walked into a gym one day and it became more than just a hobby or more than just a stress relief. So it is so cool to see like, yeah, maybe they're 20 steps ahead of you, but at the root, you guys are doing the same thing. And you just kind of have to put that passion into motion for yourself and figure out what that is. But getting into those rooms is so life changing for some of these students and for even just our prospects or fans of ours who kind of like follow one particular speaker or follow our podcast and they make their way to see like the growth that even happens from 2 days of sitting in this room and listening to guest speakers and being forced to talk to the person next to them, being prompted before lunch to go find somebody that you don't know and ask them a question. And it's just so cool to see how quickly that can happen. And that's in a weekend, right? So there's so much out there for us in this industry and in the world and the era we live in with all of these platforms we have access to. So, if you're listening to this, go find a mastermind in your area or find somewhere that aligns with that vision for you and get in those rooms because it's going to change the trajectory of your business, of your career, of your own passion.
And even if you're not like, if you don't have the potential to always be in those rooms, put yourself virtually in those rooms, from
100%.
social media to podcasts, like even just talking to people on this podcast, I feel like I've grown immensely in over 300 episodes and hundreds of hours of conversations with people. It's been eye opening. And part of the crazy part is too, what you mentioned right there is like everybody kind of has like a similar story in terms of like common motivations or common reasons why they started. But then you start digging into that, and it's so crazy to hear like this is the specifics behind that person. This is like what led them from, just starting out to go to the gym to being on the Olympia stage or being, having your own fitness, coaching business or whatever it
Yeah.
may be.
Yeah, it's a good reflection. We talked about this at our company retreat last week is like, you look at the world and you realize like we're the abnormal ones, right? Like we going into the fitness industry and we make this thing our routine. Like what would it even look like for majority of us to wake up and not go to the gym? It's just like a non-negotiable at this point. But you realize like we're the rarities. And this thing that we've become, like we start to think about it and we're like, it's so obvious. Why aren't you doing it? It's the healthier way. It's going to produce more serotonin. You're going to live happier. You're going to sleep better. And we feel like we're sitting on this secret almost, but in reality, we're really just not. And so it's cool when you start to shift your mind and realize like how much this, like walking through those gym doors one day, like changed the trajectory of like everything for you, where we sit in, for a lot of people sit down at like the dining room table with their family and they're like, oh, the gym's never been a priority. And you're like, man, why don't you just see this thing, this like best kept secret? And so our team reflected on that a lot last week because we're the lucky ones, right? But how do we share that with more people? Because I think that is also so important for the era we're in, right? Like look at the crisis of the obesity and everything going on. It's like, why is this such a secret? It shouldn't be. And
Yeah.
how do we get that message out to others?
Right. No, it sounds like it's very similar thoughts what I had yesterday. I was listening to the radio in the car and you might have seen it on my story, but it was this company who I don't necessarily disagree with what they do. It was just like how they went about talking about it for their
Mm-hmm.
advertising. Basically they were saying like if starving yourself and going to the gym for hours doesn't work, then come, do what we do. And to me it was like that's not the right way to go about teaching people. I mean, it's not their job. I'm not saying it is their job to teach people, but that's not the right way to like to influence, if that's, really what you want to call it. That's not the right way to spread your message, is to give like the two drastic ends of this,
Yeah.
scenario, instead of being like, this is what we offer, this is how we can
Right.
help you. Don't go around throwing fitness and health under the bus whenever you just gave an example of how not to do it. To me, that was just like it just made me upset. It made me angry because I know that there's so many more people that's going to hear that and think like just reinforce once again, like, okay, yeah,
That's
fitness and
bad.
health can't work for me. So I
Yeah.
might as well just either give up on it or go do something else.
Yeah. I would say like throwing stones at the enemy as a marketing tactic is my least favorite, right? Because it's like, yeah, we might know you have a better way, but it doesn't mean that you have to go throw the other ways through the mud. Because it's just, does that really make you look any better? Does that really help you? And if it does, we want to look at like what are the morals of the people and why would we opt to work with them? But that's a really great example of like the extreme, right? Because you don't have to starve yourself and spend hours in the gym, but you also can't be the guy that doesn't show up at all. And so many people want to be on one end of the spectrum or the other. And it's like we can create that same goal without the pendulum swing. That's why we do what we do, because we want people out there to find a really sustainable way of living a healthier life, being there for their kids, being there for their families, showing up in their careers, and having the coaches that are bought into helping them in the right ways instead of the 3 hours a day.
Are you looking for a supplement company that can help take your fitness game to the next level? Look no further than All Sport Pharmaceuticals. Their cutting-edge supplements are scientifically formulated to give you the edge you need in the gym and in life. Whether you're looking to build muscle, increase endurance, or boost recovery time, All Sport Pharmaceuticals has you covered. And with a wide range of products designed for people of all levels, you're sure to find the perfect supplement for your needs. So why wait? Give your body the support it deserves with All Sport Pharmaceuticals. Visit their website today to learn more and start achieving your fitness goals.
Of cardio, trace food plan, because there needs to be better coaches out there. And we've all come to one of those coaches at one point or another. So that just makes you want to do it even more, right? It's like, there's better ways.
Sometimes I feel like having like a fitness podcast and a bodybuilding podcast, it's kind of hard almost to like feel like you're making that difference, because I feel like these days with like the algorithm and the way that people view things, it's so much harder to like break into somebody else, and be like, hey, here's this other thing.
Yeah, that's something we talk about a lot too, is just like the algorithm and the engagement and all of the things. But something we've seen to be true more times than not is like the right people are getting it, whether they're responding, whether they're engaging, it's hitting on those ears, because eventually you see the hands raised or you see the right thing hit and they're like, oh, I want to know more about that. And the conversations start, and you start to talk to them. I've had this happen even at IFCA, where I talk to somebody who's been in our system for 24 hours and I say like, oh, where'd you find us? And they're like, 3 years ago. Been following Aaron that long. I've been absorbing your content for that long. But it's like only just then did they click into something that catches our system. So the right people are out there and you're hitting the right people. But sometimes it's like a defeating feeling when you're like, am I really making that breakthrough that I'm out here trying to serve?
Right.
And, biggest takeaway I can give is like, don't stop, because there's people absorbing that material and engaging with it, whether you realize it or not.
And I think another thing, like when people hear the term like influencer, they think about social media, they think about people with like huge followings. But I know like personally, most of the times the people that are in my feed more, and the people that like I feel like I get inspired by more are those people with less followers, who are like just out there doing like the daily grind and the daily, like going to the gym and doing their cardio at 4 a.m. and, like that kind of thing. I feel like is actually more inspirational and like impactful for me. It's not like the people with 1 million followers or 100,000 followers. It's the people with, maybe sometimes less than 1,000 followers or 500 followers, that it's like they're not doing it for the glory. They're literally just like doing it and putting it out there that they're doing it. And I think that that's such a cool way to be an influencer without truly like having the status of being an influencer.
Yeah. Well, and you start to talk to more and more of those guys, and you just realize like, damn, they're just a real person. There's nothing different about the person with the 500,000 followers. They wake up, they do the same shit I do. They wake up and work their job, and like that following count isn't paying their bills, right? And so it's like, who are they behind that? Are they still a good person, or are they hiding in that like follower count and they're not doing good to the community, not doing good to their followers? Because at the end of the day, that shit's never going to matter.
Yeah. And I think that I'm sure, you've probably worked with people who think, oh, if I only had this many more followers, I would be, have more clients. So is that a common thing in the industry, you feel like?
Yeah. And, it kind of goes both ways, right? Like I've seen somebody with 300 followers have 10, 15, 20K months in their businesses. I've seen people with, 150,000 followers and they're doing $600 a month. So it's one of those things where like, yeah, we all want to believe that number is going to get us status or get us followers, or it's going to, I don't know, flip this light switch and things are going to change, right? But the most impactful thing that you can do in your social media is relate to the target audience that you're trying to attract, right? And so as much as people want to believe that they can talk to everyone, if I'm talking to everyone, nobody's really attaching to that message, and that message is falling on deaf ears. So I really encourage everyone to take that time to figure out, who are you helping? Who is your, offer going to support, and get to know them, survey them, ask them questions, ask them why they're not at their goals, ask them what's keeping them stuck, why can't they figure it out on their own. And the analogy I always make is like, what is that person's vacation? Because the vacation for the mom who has no time to herself, and the business professional who's stuck between board meetings in the break room eating crap food, or the athlete who's kind of lost their why in a transition from retiring to like, what do I do when I wake up tomorrow? My mom's not dropping me off at the soccer field, right? Like, what are all of those people's true pain points? And create the offer around that. And you have to think about, like, what is the thing when they hang up with the coach that they're going to call and tell their mom or their best friend or their spouse? And it's not going to be, oh, Summer told me I have to walk 10,000 steps today and do cardio 5 times a week for the next 12 weeks, right? It's, man, Summer told me at the end of this, I'm going to be more confident. I'm going to feel better in my skin. I'm going to be able to show up for my family. And hell, my confidence might be so much better that I might get that promotion at work. That's the shit that really matters. We all know fitness, it's not just the food, and it's not just the workouts. It's all of the other stuff that's going to transpire from them doing those things. And so get out there and talk to those people. Figure out why it's your passion to help them and relate to them, because people buy coaches. They're not just there for that plan. They're there for the person at the other end who's hearing them out and saying, like, I'm the person that's going to believe in you, because for most people, that's what they're lacking. So it doesn't matter if that's going to get posted out to 500,000 people or to your little web of 1,500, you're going to see the results, and you're going to see the right people reaching out. And then eventually you can take that step back and retain them and have referrals. And you don't have to show up and be that dancing bear on Instagram. You can be so much more and serve your clients better. So highly encourage you getting your messaging clear, because that's going to make all the difference in the way you attract the right people, the people that you're actually wanting to help.
Right. Yeah, I think people get confused on like social media because they come from this place of having social media and using it like personally and seeing what other people are posting and getting, 10,000 likes. And then they think like, oh, that must be the converter, right? That must be what works on social media, instead of seeing it how businesses use it. And it's totally different.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where like big brands can get away with so much more than like a small business, but people care, right? And so the biggest limiting belief I come across is like, I'm not going to post because people don't care about what I have to say. Or, the coin to that is, I'm only going to talk about myself and I'm never going to talk about the client. It's like, you have to find that balance, because people want to know who you are and they want to know who they're going to have this one-to-one connection with as like a client coach relationship. But they also don't want to only ever hear about you. They want to know, like, how are you serving people? Can you help people like me? And if, man, I couldn't even imagine like what the metric would be, but it's crazy when you think about how many people get lost because you were too selfish in the way you made your content, and people never realize like, oh, she helps people like me. I could be one of those. Because you're just not talking about the people that you help and how they relate to your other prospective clients. So people just keep clicking. They're going to go find another one because they're commodities. Right. And so making yourself stand out from being that commodity is so important.
Yeah, I think a big thing too is like with just like the average Joe, maybe they might see somebody with like a super great physique, maybe like a bodybuilder, a pro, like an IFBB pro bodybuilder. They might see them. And if, like you said, if they're posting too much like about themselves and selfies, they might be intimidated by that person, instead of like, that person posting, oh, here's my clients. Like, it's not just like people who are pros come to me and like they already look like they want to look like. It's anybody, it's whatever kind of situation that they're in, kind of thing. I think that's a good point to make, is like, especially if you have kind of that elevated physique and elevated like stature within the community, how do you become a little bit more down to earth for that average person?
The other thing is, like, we have to step out of the bodybuilding industry and remember that not everyone wants to be six-pack abs and peeled to the bone. Some of them just want to feel better, look better. So there's more to it than just being shredded. So COVID's changed the industry. And, I think COVID, like, we can say what we want, but it brought out a lot of good things. I think that there's been a whole shift in like the way our world operates and working from home and like all of these advantages, but we have to remember that those jobs are always going to like exist, right? Is the in-person trainer ever going to go away? And luckily there's those people out there that are super super passionate about it. Some people really want a coach's hands on them, so it's all going to come down to preference. And I get plenty of successful coaches that want to do a couple hours on the gym floor because it's always been their way, and they like moving around and seeing the people face to face. But it has definitely thrown a wrench in how a lot of these businesses operate. And from a revenue standpoint, like, so many of them have had to shut down, which is crazy unfortunate. Because obviously we want those businesses to flourish. But I see a lot of coaches these days, like gym owners specifically, coming to us to build an offer for their online because they want their personal trainers to have one job, right? They don't want them to feel like they have to leave their 5 a.m. to 11 shift and go DoorDash to make their bills. And so a lot of these businesses are starting to add on that online feature so that their businesses can provide more opportunity. And so that's been a really cool shift. And I can appreciate the hell out of a boss who feels that way. And they're like, I want to be able to help you make those ends meet so that you're not just balancing all of these odd end jobs.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I haven't heard about that, but that is a really interesting kind of way to do it, almost being like the middleman for, for the coach in that way. But for the people that you've kind of worked with in your career there, do you feel like that, like what's the predominant age group? Is it that younger, early 20s? Is it late 20s, early 30s? Or is it people who maybe, were in the personal training game that are trying to get out into the fitness that are maybe in the late 30s, early 40s? Like, I'm sure there's everything, but like, what do you feel like is predominant?
I would say predominantly it's going to be those like mid 20s to mid 30s is like a heavy. We do get some more, I would say a common theme we're seeing right now is not teenagers, but like young college. And I think it's cool to see like a lot of people going against the grain, right? Because when we were in that college aged era, it was like you went to college, you got your degree, and then you explored what's left outside of that. But we've had some really, really super successful students who were just like, college ended up not being the route for me. And I can think of one student particularly who made that shift at like 19 years old, and she's 21 and her business is doing consistent 25K a month. So I would say like that mid to late early 30s, like 20s 30s is heavy. But I do get some really killer like 30-40-year-olds, some later age, like been on the gym floor for 20-30 years, folks, and they're all successful in their own right. And the people at that demographic they've already built so much trust. They've already gotten the people to like, and trust them. And so for them, it's just its own challenge because they have to learn a different way of doing it. And having the right systems to create that same level of rapport and communication and just knowing how to support a client virtually is so important. But I think the biggest thing that people don't realize is you can give them more. You can give them more than that 60-minute session on the gym floor, because now we go from that to 3 to 5 workouts a week, Zoom calls. I can voice memo you. You can message me when you're at a restaurant and don't know what to order off the menu. there's so many pieces that these online coaches are able to include in their offer. And so it's just really learning how to transform what you were once doing in person to online for those guys. But if we were going to talk demographics, it's definitely like probably just around like post college, and then early 30s is like a heavy majority. And then, plenty of others that kind of filter through and do really well as well.
This podcast is sponsored by Smoking Gun Coffee, a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout. Looking for a supplement company that's as serious about your fitness goals as you are? All Sport Pharmaceuticals is here to help. Their top-of-the-line supplements are designed to help you get the most out of every workout with ingredients that have been scientifically proven to enhance performance and recovery. Whether you're a seasoned athlete or just starting out on your fitness journey, All Sport Pharmaceuticals has the perfect supplements to help you achieve your goals. Plus, with their commitment to quality and safety, you can trust that you're getting a product that's both effective and reliable. So what are you waiting for? Take your fitness game to the next level with All Sport Pharmaceuticals. Visit the website today to learn more.
Right. And so what do you feel like are some of the strengths of the like the 20, mid 20s to mid 30s? What do you think some of the strengths are to those coaches, and what do you think some of the weaknesses are for those that you guys work with?
Yeah, I would say strengths are for a lot of them, right? This isn't always the case, but they grew up with the growth of social media. A lot of them, whether they've been posting with intent, they've been posting. And so they have a network. They understand how to operate the app. I know that sounds so silly, but I get some of these coaches and they're like, I don't even understand how to like, why would I DM these people? Why would I talk to them? And we're like, it's social media. Get out there, talk to them. They're following you for a reason. So strengths, I think, is just like being in that era that they grew up, they knew how to operate social media to an advantage point. And for a lot of them, like they're comfortable with using it for that reason. As some of those students get a little bit older, they either feel very differently one way or the other. Like they either love it or they're like, I've never done it. I didn't grow up with it. I don't want to put myself out there. And it's hard to blame them, right? But a lot of that resistance comes down to sometimes just not knowing what to post and not wanting to put the time in if they're not going to see like a return on it, right? And so we can solve a lot of that by just giving them frameworks on what to put out there. But weaknesses, I would say probably one of the biggest weaknesses I see in like those 20s and 30-year-olds is the limiting beliefs and them just standing in their own way. You grow up around those influencers and you're like, well, why are people going to choose me over that guy? And so we have to overcome a lot of that fear of like failure, because the other thing that happens when you grow up in this social media like frenzy is you don't want to be the person to show up and fail. And you feel like, man, I've been posting on here for 11 years. What if I don't do well? What if nobody comments on my post and wants my offer? And so it's a lot of like working through like, yeah, that's the what if, but like, what if they do? What's on the other side of that fear? And so I would say like people just standing in their own way is probably the biggest weakness, because they compare their journeys to others and they compare their platforms to others. And you just have to be your own person and your own brand, because if you're constantly comparing, like you're never going to be satisfied in your own business and in your own journey. And you're never going to know what you can make for yourself, if you're doing that.
Right. And what are some of the things, I'm sure there's like, books full of things you could probably say, but like, what are some of the key things that you guys talk about to your clients to like help say, do these things better, do these things more, and it's going to help you stand out more as a coach, not just on social media, but just in general?
Yeah. Oh man, there's so many. I would say, again, coming back to like, what is the problem you're solving and who are you solving it for? Because the clearer you can get on that, the more that you're going to stand out, right? And so that kind of comes back to like offer development. But if you just get out there and you say like, I'm an online fitness coach, I give you online or individualized workouts and nutrition, you sound like that guy, right? And the biggest thing that happens is why is somebody going to choose me at $500 a month when that beachbody.com is $10 a month or $120 for the year, right? It's like, you have to find a way to solve a unique problem. And for every audience, again, that's going to be so different. So knowing who you're solving that problem for and knowing the worth of that problem, because as the education has advanced in our industry, and we see it every year, right? Coaches just get better and better at their craft. A lot of these coaches are competing against Western medicine, right? And so if I walk into a doctor's office, what is the problem they're solving and how much is that going to cost me can be tens of thousands of dollars. And so you have to understand the difference between like the value of the offer, charging what you're worth, and knowing like how that correlates from one versus the other. So that's a huge one, I would say. The other thing is, there's people that will feel differently about this, but when you're charging that higher ticket, automatically you're going to get a client better results because they've made the investment and they're not going to give up on themselves when they've made that financial investment. And so, when we see coaches increase pricing, oftentimes just out of fact from that, their clients start showing up better. Their changes are better. Their mentality around the coaching is better. And oftentimes those clients become less problematic because it's always the lower paying clients who are like texting you all day long. They don't want to go to the gym and they want a babysitter, right? And so if I was going to give people advice on like 2 areas to tap into to just not need a ton of guidance, but to be able to make dramatic changes right away, it would be charge your worth and know what the problem is and how are you going to solve it in a unique way, right? And what is going to be the verbiage that carries you there? Because nobody cares about the workouts and the nutrition and the accountability call you're giving them. They care about what's going to happen at the end. And as soon as you can learn how to sell that, you're going to be able to have the most trust with your audience.
Yeah.
You don't wake up on a vacation day thinking about the flight and being pumped to get on the flight. You're pumped about like Bermuda at the end. And so learn what that is for your client.
Yeah. That's a very interesting way to put it. I like that. There's so many aspects to having a coach that it's just going to boost you to that next level of what you're capable of.
Yeah. And that's something we tell students all the time because they, the belief system as a beginning coach is like, oh, I'll just get a couple free clients. And it's not the wrong thing to do, but you end up realizing that those free clients aren't getting results anyway. So it's not building your portfolio. It's not building your testimonials because they're not invested enough to show up to the gym, to weigh the food, to do the work. And then you realize like, man, now I waited 3 months on this person to try and build my business further because I thought at the end of it, I'd have this cool transformation. And, we almost did them a disservice because it didn't push either one of us in the right direction.
Right. Yeah. And something that I actually, was talking about the other day, it's kind of like building a house on a foundation of sand, right? Like if you don't build your business on a foundation of like good clients and people who are willing to pay maybe a little bit higher of a price for those better, get better results, things like that, you can't expect to all of a sudden one day wake up and have that kind of business or have that type of clientele unless you're the one that, today implements that.
Yeah. Especially with like the systems, because I tell people that's your foundation as well. You can only get so far working out of an iPhone notepad and your email. For your own sake and scalability, you need to have better systems in place that are going to allow you to replicate what you're doing over and over and over again. So that if it's me, my significant other, or somebody I hire, onboarding somebody, that product that I built today that I'm super proud of and put all the integrity into, it's not going to deviate in 3 months. It's not going to deviate in a year, because that is the piece that keeps your clients coming back, is the genuine product that is there to help them, right? And so when you build that trust from day one, it's a no-brainer when they want to re-sign. Of course they're going to stay. And through having good systems, you're simplifying their workload. Because of course it's a benefit for me, the business owner, to be like, cool, I can do everything I need to do in 12 hours. But if my clients have to jump through hoops to get to their result, how am I going to expect to keep them?
Right.
Right. And so jumping into fitness from a general standpoint, they're already afraid. They already have intimidation. And if I tell them that they have to go do all of these things and download apps and check their email and do that, like, we've lost them. We've lost them in that journey already, because the thing that they've been so afraid of, which is it being super complicated, they're just not going to make that progress. They're going to back down as soon as it becomes a challenge, because they're all not doing it because they don't have the time. So how do I do it without adding all of these barriers in their way?
No, yeah, I think making it easy is such a great aspect. And the systems that you have in place, the things that like make it like routine, like here, this is when we do it on this day. And having the capacity to be flexible as well for someone and for yourself is important too. So you're not too rigid, but making it almost so easy that it does become a habit, that because that's what you're really trying to do, I think, as a coach and as a person who wants to make a change, is take out the old habits and insert in new habits. And you can't do that if it's like, okay, this week we're doing it on Tuesday at 6 a.m. The next week we're doing it on Thursday at 4 p.m. Like, that's not a habit anymore. It's just more craziness and more confusion.
Yeah, it's such an important piece, because that stability it's important, especially as a beginner, right? As you start to habit stack and you're adding in new layers, or maybe you have this new goal and it's competing or it's powerlifting or whatever, then you can start to add on the extra pieces and be like, you signed up for this, you're accountable now. But as a beginner, it's so important that we just simplify it, because if it wasn't simple for me 5 years ago, I wouldn't be here. It would have been way too intimidating. So even at like a competitive level as a young athlete and like a kid, there's that barrier that has to be broken when you move into like the other side. Especially when your parents, again, they're not like dropping you off. They're not doing that for you. You have to find a way to meet those people in the middle. And this industry is known for, I'll start next week, I'll start next year, I'll start on Monday, and nobody ever starts. So what is the thing that's going to get them started? And how are we going to continue to stack that habit until, like I said, we just wake up every day now and it's our day. It's a non-negotiable, but there has to be the shift to get that person there.
I think that's the beautiful thing about life, and especially becoming an adult. It's weird because I feel like there's this like almost negativity around like what people say as adulting, like, oh, I wish I didn't have to be adulting. But to me, it's like this opportunity to have any day that I want to have. Like, it used to be as a kid, like you almost had this like regimen of your parents tell you what to do, you have to be here at this time. Like, as an adult, you get to create your own life and create your own reality, and like capture like any opportunity that you want to. And I think that that's such a cool, unique opportunity as a human being, is we have a world to where if we want to do like pretty much anything, we just like figure out how to do it, set ourselves on that track, and continue to be consistent with it. To me, that's like the ultimate dream, is just like being able to chase your dreams.
Yeah, it's like once you realize you can change your life and your physique through fitness, you're like, oh, I have control over this shit. What else can I do? And again, it's like that best kept secret in our industry, because other people don't realize that. They don't wake up and realize they have this control. And so sometimes it takes that one shift in, oh, I can control how I look. I can control my mindset. I can control how I show up, for you to realize, oh, I can control the business. I can take action on this idea. And then it's like a snowball effect, but it's cool. And then, we all joke about like, I just want to be like, have a sick day when I'm in elementary school and stay home. But like, we get to change the world now, and we get to do it with like big kid money, right? So it's fun. It's fun when you get to like wake up and love the shit that you do.
Yeah. Yeah. And know like you do what you love, and what you love is like helping other people and making a difference. And I think that's really cool. And it's really cool what you guys are doing. And I appreciate you coming on the podcast and kind of sharing a little bit about it. And hopefully, coaches out there who are watching this can benefit from this information, or at least, plant that seed in their mind that, hey, we can do this, or I can do this a little bit better. So I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. Coaches are always welcome to reach out for resources. That's what my team does best. So would love to see you guys crushing your businesses in the future. And it's been a blast.
Yeah. And if you want to share like where they can reach out, social media, whatever, you can go ahead and do that.
Yeah, so you can find our Instagram at Impact Fitness Coaching Academy on Instagram. We also have a really badass free Facebook community where you can kind of immerse yourself surrounded by just authorities in the space. Our team members, we're always providing free value in there, free trainings. So that would be the Fitness Business Secrets Facebook group, and I can drop you a link for later. But you can always reach out to me personally, but I'm way less cool than the rest of my team.
Well, like I said, I really appreciate you coming on. It was great getting to chat with you this morning, and have a great rest of your weekend.
Talk soon. Bye.
If you're tired of searching for a coach or trainer, somebody who knows what they're talking about and has experience, make sure you go check out the new Coach's Corner on weightroompodcast.com. You can find quality, qualified coaches to help you achieve your goals, whether that's in bodybuilding or just general fitness. Stop wasting time and start achieving your goals today. The link to the Coach's Corner is down in the description below.